Okay, I can see. Welcome to Comic Showcase. Tonight we're doing comics before bed, and this is my second live show. So let's see how it goes. Tonight we're going to be doing some fun stories. Uh, I've been a little bit more tired. I've been editing my book and doing the last finishing edits and working a lot. So I have my trusty outline, and we're going to try and get through this. And also tonight, I have my husband helping me with the chats. So hopefully, we'll see if he's up to the job or if after tonight we need to figure something else out. So, welcome to Comics Before Bed. Growing up, I really liked campfire ghost stories. I'd go camping with my family, and we'd go with a bunch of other families, and it was always kind of fun to sit around the campfire and tell some stories. So we're going to be doing some campfire stories that aren't so much scary as they are mysterious and spooky, because I used to love the spooky stories that you would tell with friends around the fire. So we're going to be and there's also some humorous ones. I will say I picked out some that aren't just mysterious and spooky, but they're kind of cutesy and funny. Hello. My dog wanted to say hello too. I guess everybody's getting in on it tonight. And let's hope, because I am tired, that I don't put you to sleep and I don't put myself to sleep and we end up like these guys behind me. Because lately I've been reading comics and falling asleep at night. But let's get into it. The first one that I'm going to be showing, and I guess a little history first. A lot of these books that I'm going to show you tonight are like Ripley's Believe It or Not, or things that deal with the occult and kind of, the mystery and spooky side of like witchcraft and things like that. And we all know that during the 60s, and even maybe a little bit before that, there was a monster craze. But in the 70s, there was also this shift that went from, so all the fringe, like alternative ideas or counterculture became the mainstream. And some of that was tarot cards, astrology, and witchcraft and things like that. So part of the reason for that is I think in the 60s, it was a lot of, peace and love. And a lot of the students were against the war and they were kind of disillusioned and also, looking for meaning outside of just rationalism. So they turned to other things. And I think that's why the occult got so popular. And also, movies and TV seemed to notice this trend and they wanted to, of course, make money off of it. So they started going for things that were shocking, which cults were very interesting and also kind of shocking. And so they started using the occult in things as like a shock and awe way to grab people. And as trends go, it kind of went in cycles. And so then in the 80s, there was kind of this Satan panic. And then the cycle kind of went away from the occult a little bit and back to other things, and maybe religion and things like that, or more classic ways of life. So the first book I'm showing is Ripley's Believe It or Not, and it's true ghost stories. And this one has a few different stories in it. It's a gold key, and it's from 1977. It's True Ghost Stories number 73. And it has Ship of Vengeance, Knight Rider, The Traveling Companion, and The Kissing Ghost in it. And I will say, so the stories are all really fun, and one of the spookier ones, or I guess mysterious, is Knight Rider. So there's a Native American who can supposedly race a train every night. He's a ghost that races a train, and people have seen him, but he never beats the train. So there's a journalist who's kind of covering this story, and he he thinks it's fascinating that he can never beat the train, and he kind of feels bad for him. And then he gets to see, when he's looking out his window playing his ukulele, he sees the native, and he jumps out of the train and he starts riding with him. And the story implies that that night that the native beat the train. And the next day, the man's missing, and all that's found is a ukulele that the man was playing and an arrow from the native. So it kind of leaves you wondering, did the man jump off the train because he was crazy and saw this? He thought he saw a ghost, and then he ended up dying, or did he actually ride with the ghost and then he just disappeared? Spooky. um, yeah. So, and if you hear a bell ring, it's my husband telling me that there's something for me to pay attention to in the chat. So I might take periodic breaks just to address certain things from the chat. So anyways, continuing. Oh, and then, okay, so the story, the kissing ghost, is kind of a funny one too. So this woman is sleeping in a house, and she keeps waking up to a ghost kissing her. And she tries to tell her husband that, this man is assaulting her, like he's kissing her when she's sleeping. And so then he doesn't believe her. And then finally he wakes up to see it happening, and he draws a sword and he's trying to fight the ghost, and the ghost just disappears. So it never really gets solved on why he or what they're going to do about the kissing ghost. But I guess that one's kind of a nice one, because he wasn't violent or anything. But anyways, so that's the first, Ripley's Believe It or Not. And I thought it was kind of interesting. Let me get some of my notes. So Ripley's was originally called Champs and Chumps, and it used to have sports stories. And then it became Believe It or Not, and it started in 1918. And it basically was just sports facts and oddball facts. I think there was even a story about a man who walked backwards around the earth. And so he just had a bunch of strange facts. And then later, Gold Key ran with it, and it was from 1965 to 1980. And it was 94 issues. And it became Ripley's Believe It or Not, after Robert Ripley, who had done these sports Believe It or Not. So it's kind of fun. It was always oddball facts. And these books, the Ripley's Believe It or Not, always focuses on true stories or formal anthologies. And a lot of them, if you can notice, the cover is really pretty. They focused on art contributors, and they had a lot of painted covers that made them kind of stand out and more special. What are some people saying? Good evening, everybody. Hello. This next one is Ripley's Believe It or Not, True Ghost Stories. And it's number 62. Let me show you the cover here. So these are Gold Key and Western Publishing. So the story in this one is the roommate, when the Pharaoh returns. I refuse to obey that order. And why are we apart? The why are we apart is two lovers who are separated, and then basically they have to be reunited before things will be set right. And when the Pharaoh returns is a pretty good one too, because as it says here, a Pharaoh's afterlife is at stake, and it has to do with a bat. You can never go wrong with a name like Knight Rider. That's so true. I agree with that. Although I really am curious what happened to that man. This next one is a gold key, Ripley's Believe It or Not, True Ghost Stories, number 61, and this is 1976. How many issues did the series run? These gold key were 94 issues. Okay, so this one says, "Make way, a blazing evil lights the midnight sky." And the cover is of the first story, which is called The Devil's Own. And it's basically with a carriage that appears and disappears, and it will ride through. And it's this phantom carriage. And I've actually, in another book that I got when I first moved to the city I live in, I got this book about haunted places in the city, and they actually talk about a carriage that is seen appearing and disappearing. So it's kind of fun when they say true ghost stories, and it's supposedly true stories from around the world. I've actually heard of this story, so it made me like it even more. The next story in this one is called The Accomplice. Ghost Woman Killed. Okay, so The Accomplice. And there's a man sees. It's okay. So a man ends up seeing this like dagger, and then he ends up seeing different strange things happening in the water, and he sees a woman, and this woman ends up. I guess she's reenacting. She killed her husband, and she drowned while she was trying to escape. And the man who gave them the boat ends up being arrested because of this other man seeing the ghost and her showing him what happened. And so they find the bodies, and they find out that it was this whole murder. She had killed him out of jealousy, and now she was having to reenact it until they found her body. It's kind of some yeah. The next story is The Escort. And then, so in that story, they end up having, the man's rich enough that he can move his entire house because his house is on haunted land. And so he can't live in it. He keeps being haunted, and the hauntings are getting worse and worse. And they say, well, it's because the land is haunted that your house is on. If you move your house, the hauntings will stop. So he ends up having to move his entire house to avoid these ghosts that are, some of them were criminals and had horrible things happen to them. Okay. This next one is another Ripley's Believe It or Not, True Ghost Stories. And this is 1972. This is number 37. Horror suspense. Mike, yes, it is definitely horror and suspense. That's why they're so fun. I guess, yeah, so horror and suspense makes it spooky. So the story number 1 is called The Ruby Ring. Oh, I'm sorry. So I messed up earlier. So this is the one with the dagger. So the man sees a knife in the water, and it's a strange looking knife he's never seen before. And then he goes back the next day to get it, and it's gone. Then he sees a whirlpool, and then he sees a hand with a ruby ring come out of the water. So he runs to the water, and he tries to grip the hand and pull the person out, but the hand vanishes. So then, he's obviously distraught because he's like, what's going on? What happened to this person? What happened to the hand? I know I saw it. And then later there's another character who sees a ghost, a woman walking. And then the man ends up hearing that this person saw a ghost woman. And so he starts to put it all together. And then the woman, he sees her and she walks into the water and he follows her and she disappears. And then he says something's in the water. So then again, they have to get something out of the water. And then they find a woman with a ruby ring, and they identify the woman by the ring, and they find out that she must have used this dagger, which is a Malay dagger, and basically stabbed her husband and stabbed herself, and they both died that day. And so once they find her, she's able to live in peace. The second story is called Stone Angels, and the third story is Face Out the Window. Face Out the Window is a really interesting one because it's about a spy who was against the Americans, and so he was living in this house and he was discovered, and he tried to run home to his wife before he got killed, but they killed him in the house. And so now if any American who comes into the house, he attacks them. And so this guy gets attacked, and then he starts learning about the story, and then nobody wants to bother the house ever again because he's the face in the window, and he protects it as his house. Story 4 is called Green Eyes. Also, for you men out there, this is a cautionary tale for you. Never be mean to a woman. Green Eyes is a woman who was scorned by this man. She was in love and he left her. And it was during times when they used horse and carriage. And he even had a portrait made of her. And so she thought she was super special. And then he tells her, I'm leaving you. I don't care. And she's like, I thought you loved me. I thought we were going to get married. And he's like, oh, get out of here, you know? And so he leaves and he ends up running her over with the carriage and killing her. And he doesn't stop and he just leaves. And he starts dating all these other women and he's trying to get engaged. And then so he ends up finding a woman he loves. And then every time he would be engaged, Green Eyes would show up and threaten the woman or threaten him. And so they break off the engagement. So it ends with the man having to become a monk, and then she leaves him alone. So he has to live a life of celibacy. The story for you men out there. Spooky. Yeah, these books do sell for good prices, and I got really lucky at the store I found these at. They were actually doing a deal where they were 20% off too. So I got really lucky with these books. And they're just so fun. I actually really enjoy reading these. So they're always good to have in my collection. This is Ripley's Believe It or Not, number 58. So the first story is The Golden-Haired Ghost. Oh, okay, so the golden-haired ghost. If you see the golden-haired ghost, beware. Because if you see him, he's reenacting how you're about to die. So all these people keep seeing this golden-haired ghost, and he does something different every time, and they're like, he did something strange, and blah, blah, blah. And then the next day, that would happen to them, and that would be how they died. So it basically is, when you see this ghost, be scared because it means your death is coming. The next story was The Searcher, and then Stone Dead, and then The Intruder. The Intruder was a very good story too. That one's about Mozart, actually. And he gets visited by a man who ends up being a ghost. And he doesn't know this at first. He gets visited by a man, and the man tells him, I want you to compose a requiem. And you need to do it very fast, and it needs to be really good. And he's like, you need to get hard at work. And he's like, okay. And then his wife comes in, Mozart's wife comes in, and is like, who are you talking to? And he's like, I was talking to a man. Didn't you see him? And she's like, there was no man. You were talking to yourself. And so basically, eventually he puts it all together. that the man's having him write the requiem for his own death. And so he realizes this and he's trying to get it done. And then you don't know if he ended up killing himself by working too hard or if he actually was going to die, because he stops like eating as much. He's just working so hard. And the wife keeps trying to bring him like food and drink, and he's not accepting it, and he's just wanting to work. And then the next day he's dead, and it's not fully finished, so his friends have to finish it for him, and then they play it at his funeral. Yeah, Future Death Symphony. We should all, I mean, I couldn't even write myself one. At least he was lucky enough that he could. Okay, this next one is the Occult Files, Dr. Spectre. And this is Dr. Spectre number 23, 1976. And this one has where mortals fear to trend and Dr. Solarman of the Atom. It's a really cool cover. I don't know if you can see all the reds and browns, but there's a monster creature and they're all running. But this next Dr. Spectre is the one I really wanted to show. This has all the classic monsters. So not only are the monsters on the cover, but they're also in the story, which I was actually pleasantly surprised that they were all in the story. So, these books, I didn't know a whole lot about it. I knew I liked reading them, but I didn't know a lot of the history. So I looked into it. And these were around from 1973 to 1977, and they were created by Donald F. Glut and an artist, Dan Spiegel. And the stories follow Dr. Adam Spectre, an assistant, and his assistant, Lakota Rainflower. But the creator, Donald Glut, he's actually pretty interesting. So he was kind of an amateur movie producer, writer. He made a bunch of movies, about 41 movies, in his teens and his early 20s. And they featured things like dinosaurs, Frankenstein, teenage monsters, and even some superheroes. He did a Superman and a Spider-Man movie. And he gained some notoriety by being featured in the magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland. And I actually love seeing when people show them. They're large and really kind of fun books. But he got more popular because of that. And then he actually got Glenn Strange, who was an actor who played Frankenstein after Boris Karloff. And so he got that actor to be in one of his movies. And so that kind of made him even more famous. The movie was The Adventures of the Spirit in 1963. And the Glenn Strange played Frankenstein, of course. And his Glut's last film was Spider-Man in 1969. He became a script writer for film and TV, and he also wrote novelizations of films. And some of the ones that you might know would be Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, some Captain America, and X-Men. But that man was the creator of this. And okay, so this story, Dr. Spectre ends up seeing this beautiful woman, and he's kind of infatuated from the second he sees her. And her name's Karina. And he doesn't know it yet, but she's bewitching him. And she works for the Dark Shadows, the Dark Gods. And she starts to actually, Lakota Rainflower, his assistant, gets really upset and jealous. and she almost wants to quit because she's feeling so pushed to the side. And they have kind of a romantic relationship, so she feels like this woman is stealing him away, and he actually tells her, like, if you can't deal with it, you can leave. And so she's getting her feelings hurt, and it's causing a divide between them. And Sheena gets him to come to her because she's bewitched him and put a spell on him. So he comes to her, and as soon as he goes into the cave where he sees her, she starts to create this illusion and bring back all these monsters. So it's kind of funny. Dr. Spector says that Mr. Hyde is his best friend. And he's like, I fixed you. How are you back to being Mr. Hyde? I saved you. I changed you back. And then he's talking about Frankenstein and the mummy and Dracula. And he's basically like, what? I already did all these cases. How are you guys all here? And then at the end, he's falling down into this pit. And he's about to die, I guess, like go into this pit of nothingness. And Lakota comes up and she's stepping on his fingers, and she's like, I don't care if you die, and she's basically being cruel to him. And he's like, wait a minute, Lakota, even if she hated me, would never act this way. He's like, this is an illusion in my mind. You're playing tricks on me. And then it breaks the spell, and he's able to come back and fight off the spell and save the day. And then he embraces Lakota and tells her, I'm so sorry. And they kiss and prepare to go out. It's pretty cute, but it's also kind of a scary story of messing with someone's head, making him believe things, and he was actually seeing them. The last story in this one is the pit. It's called Lion Man. And this lion falls into, this man who can turn into a lion falls into a pit, and he ends up meeting this man who is kind of cruel to him, and he wants to teach him a lesson. And so he has he outsmarts him, and eventually he's able to bring all the lions back, and they're about to ravage this man, kill him. And then he calls them off because they only listen to him because he's half lion. And then the man learns he should give respect to things he doesn't understand. Okay. So this next one is Boris Karloff. The lion sleeps tonight. Yeah. Actually, not so much if you read that story. They kind of sound like they're just running wild. Okay, so Boris Karloff, Tales of Mystery. There were 97 issues in this series. It ran from 1963 to 1980. And Boris Karloff is like the host of the story, or he narrates the end or certain points. He does little pop-ups where he's the host of it. And Boris Karloff was an English actor, and he's most famous for portraying Frankenstein. But in this book, I don't know if you've seen Twilight Zone, then you know that he's kind of like the Rod Serling character. So the first story in this is The Last Wizard. And it's about a father and son who are alchemists, and they're doing a bunch of experiments because they're just trying to get better at their craft. And the son's doing some experiments, and the townspeople see him because he's doing them outside instead of inside. And the father warns them, like, you probably shouldn't be doing these outside. But the father's doing his experiments, and he's creating ghost monsters and stuff because he knows how to use the chemicals. But his son does something wrong, and he knocks something over, and it causes a big scene and burns some things. And the townspeople say, it's witchcraft. So they start pulling the son away, and they're about to hang him. And the father uses his old magic, which the son was mocking previously and doesn't really know how to do it. And so the father makes this smoke monster that's large and towers over all the people. And he's like, I can make it go away if you let my son go. And so eventually they let it go because they don't understand what this monster will do to him if they don't. So he saves his son, and it's a happy story. The next one is No Exit, and um, and then there's another story, Grave Diggings. And the grave diggings is what is portrayed on the cover. So they're digging, it's kind of a Godzilla story, but with some twists. So these oil diggers are digging in the ground, and they keep their, he's like, we haven't struck it yet, go deeper, go deeper. So they strike, and then something flies out of the hole, and then soon after that they hear a rumble, and then out comes this monster dinosaur type creature, and he's glowing, he's radioactive. And so they're all scared of him, and they all run away and cower, and they're like, what are we going to do? And then the dinosaur is searching for something. So then they see that the thing that had flown out of the hole is this radioactive spores. And so the dinosaur goes and he eats the radioactive spores, which saves the people. And then he goes back down into the hole, and then he seals it off so that they can never come down again. So basically it's like the nicest Godzilla ever. He's protecting the humans from radioactive contamination. But it also teaches you, don't go digging where you don't know. Beats being bitten by a radioactive spider. Yeah. Unless you get all those powers. Let's see. Next we have Shadow Play, Tales of the Supernatural. And this one ran from 1982 to 1983, and it's a Western Whitman, Bronze Age. So this is and this is actually number 1. So this is Shadow Play, Tales of the Supernatural number 1, 1982. Okay, so this one has, the first story is very interesting. It's the inherited clock. And there's this old father who's kind of a curmudgeon. I don't think he likes his kids very much. And he's about to die. And they're all kind of fighting over what they're going to get. And he gives this clock. So he gives a clock to his child. And the first night, the child who inherited the clock goes to sleep. And he wakes up. He's like, what is that pounding, that annoying sound? It's almost like it's a metronome in my head. And so it's just tick, tick, tick. And the guy's going crazy. And then all of a sudden, this ghost of the father's face flashes out of the clock and scares him to death, and he dies. So then they're like, well, that's really sad. He died. I wonder what happened. And then the clock goes to the next child. And then the next child, the first night he goes to sleep, he wakes up, there's a pounding in his head. He's like, oh my God, it's going to kill me. This sound is just so loud in my head. Tick, tick, tick. And then he sees the ghost come out of his father's face, and it scares him, and he falls down the stairs and he dies. Then it goes to the next child. Same thing basically happens until they're all dead. And then the clock goes to some person that's not in the family. And then that person inherits the clock, and the clock acts like a normal clock. So kind of spooky. The guy hated his children that much. His name was Ezra. The next story is Kristen and the bracelet of her. It's Kristen and the girl in it has a bracelet that was given to her of her brother's hair, and it's because he's going to war, and so it's supposed to protect her and to make her hopeful that he's coming back. But he dies, and so then she stops eating, and she's really depressed, and she passes away. And so as a ghost, she starts visiting one of the townspeople and telling him, like, you need to go get my brother's body. You need to put me next to my brother's body. I need to be next to him. And so then they end up taking her to be next to the brother's body. But then they lose her bracelet. And so then she starts haunting him again and saying, I don't have my bracelet. I don't have my bracelet. And so they have to find her bracelet and put it back with her and then have her be reunited with her brother. The other story in this is Time for Change. And also there's two stories where a man turns into a beast, and both are very creepy. Time for Change, he turns into a beast, and he has to be they were testing chemicals, and he happened to walk into a field and he turned into a beast, so he lost his speech. It changed his appearance. He couldn't tell anyone what happened, and eventually people are starting to turn on him in the town because they're starting to be scared of him. And then this helicopter comes in, and it's the government, and they take him, and they're like, we're going to figure this out, buddy. We're going to figure out how to turn you back. But until they do, he's like trapped in this facility as this animal. The next story is Forced Wedding. And then the last one, which is on the cover, is The Sad Cavalier. And the Sad Cavalier is a man who drinks at a bar, and he's seen briefly by people as a ghost, and he's always asking for a beer. He drinks his beer and he laughs, and then he starts crying, and it's because he was betrayed by the one he loves. She turned him over to the opposite army, and they got him. And so he's brokenhearted, so he returns as the Sad Cavalier. Okay, and now because we did a bunch of creepy ghost stories, those actually weren't too bad, but to get you back in your mindset for bedtime, I also have some more humorous or cute ones. So this series, The Little Monsters, this is number 44. This is 1978. There's a tear in my beer. I know. I'm a Sad Cavalier. Poor guy. So the Little Monsters actually appeared on the back pages of the Three Stooges, number 17. And that was in May of 1964. And then they first got their own comic book issue in November 1964. So it was after they appeared in that Three Stooges, number 17. So they're a Frankensteinish kind of family. It's the kids are Orrible Orvie and Awful Annie. And they're a monster family. And the mom is Demonica and the dad is Mildew. And they live in a creepy old castle. And because Gold Key didn't go for licensing out its own characters, they never appeared in any other media, but they were very popular as a comic book, actually. So the first story in this one is called Grimpa's Grim Joke. And Grimpa is the grandpa monster. And he ends up, he does a trick where he can make his voice seem like it's coming from other areas, but then he loses his voice and physically loses his voice by having it have a personality of its own. So he has to figure out with his grandkids how they're going to trick his voice so that it will jump back into his body. So the whole story is him and his grandkids trying to chase down his voice. And eventually they do trick him, and then he gets his voice back. The next story is called A Maid for Mama. And the mom is basically tired of cleaning up after all of the kids and the husband. And so she's like, I need some help. So they get a ghost maid, and she comes and she does all these things, but she doesn't do them. She's kind of like an Amelia Bedelia character. I don't know if any of you know that character, but she does things all the wrong way. But the last straw is she tries to serve them for dinner ghost stew. And ghost stew is just an empty bowl, and she says there's stew in it, but they can't see anything in it. And so then the mom kicks her to the curb and tells her not to come back. And and then at the end, you see all the family, they're being forced to work, and they're all in little maid outfits. And so she's like, you guys get to work. Don't make me call the maid back. And so it's kind of a threat then that she'll bring the maid who doesn't make food. It's kind of cute. And this next one is The Little Monsters, number 27. And this is 1974. I thought this one was also kind of a cute cover. They just have really cute stories that feature Horrible Orvie and Awful Annie, and then sometimes the mom and the dad. Okay. This next one is Scooby-Doo Mystery Comics. So Gold Key and Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo Mystery Comics number 27, 1974. And Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Was the first, it premiered on September 13th, 1969 on CBS. And then it became comic books. And it ran from 1970 to 1975, and it had 30 issues in the comic series. And early issues were adaptations of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And I want to, at this point, I want to give a shout out to Signor Burcaccino, because I think a while ago he asked if I had a Scooby-Doo. So I found this one and I pulled it out for you. So so the first story is a legendary colony creature, and it's a cute story. They have a bank robbery, and a safety deposit box is stolen with a bunch of money that's supposed to build a park. And all the people are upset. They're like, what are we going to do? All the money's all gone. And so the group comes in to try and figure out what happened. And there's been a sighting of this old ghost. They call it a ghost, but it looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon. So they've been seeing this sighting of this strange thing. So they're called in to figure out what's going on. So they eventually find out that a long time ago, this old viceroy used to wear it to scare the townspeople. And he hid it when one of the townsfolk, the guy who built the armor for him to wear it to walk around town and scare everyone, he knew how to disarm it. He basically took this magnetic powder and he blows it onto him so he can't move because it's made of metal. And so once he's no longer scary to the townspeople, he goes to a cave and he leaves his costume there, or the outfit, the metal outfit there, and it's forgotten about. So years pass, and then there's this robbery, and the robbery criminals, once they take the safety deposit box and they run away and they hide in this cave, they find the suit. So one of the, I guess for kicks, one of the guys who stole the safety deposit box starts going around town scaring everyone. And so it's the colony creature, because that's what they used to call it. And so everyone's like, oh, it's back, the colony creature, it's back. But Scooby-Doo and all of them end up going to this, they end up figuring it out, and they find this old drawing from Benjamin Franklin about how he, and it was a drawing of a broken snake, and it's how they defeated the British. He used it as an attack tactic. So they end up remembering about a cave, and they go there and they find out what happened, and they find the criminals, and they disarm them with the same powder that was used originally, and then they also catch them with the safety deposit box. So they're going to go to jail, and they're like, oh, but they burned the money so they wouldn't get in trouble. Like, we still don't have the money for the park. And then Daphne reminds all of them that we have an original drawing from Benjamin Franklin. We're rich. So it's a really cute story. I really enjoyed it. And then the next story is called Nightmare First Class, and it kind of starts with a nursery rhyme. I don't know if any of you remember there once was a lady who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly. I guess perhaps she'll die. It's such a weird nursery rhyme that we sing to children. But they start the story using not specifically that, but they use their own form of that, and then it gets into the story. So the story, this man passed away, and he's leaving $2 million to his son, but everyone keeps saying that they're the son, and they can't figure out who's the real son. So they're determined to find the real son. And the lawyer, I think the attorney always knew, but he dresses up as a ghost, and he's scaring one of the guys who claimed to be the son, and he had a bracelet that he said proved he was the son because it was from the dad. He goes into the house and he starts seeing a ghost, and he's being haunted. And so finally he takes Scooby-Doo and the group in, and Scooby-Doo's sleeping at the bottom of the bed, supposed to protect him. But then he sees a ghost, and he gets scared, and the team runs down, and they find out that the guy's like, is it a real ghost? You would know. And then they mess with him because they know it's not real, but they tell him it's a real ghost because you're lying. And then the guy admits that he's a fraud and he's been lying. And so they chase him down, and eventually they get him. And then at the end of this, I don't want to tell you all of it, but at the end of the story, they end up finding the true son. And they're like, why did you not claim the $2 million? And he's like, that's nothing. That's petty cash. Like, he's like, I have 20 million of my own. I don't need that money. So kind of funny. How nice would it be to not need $2 million, huh? That's a scary ghost story. Sorry, also trying to read some of the chats. The next book is Gold Key, Walt Disney, Uncle Scrooge, number 129. And I guess I also have a money theme going as part of tonight's thing. Because in this one, it's really cute. In this one, Uncle Scrooge decides he hears the Beagle Boys are getting out of prison, so he moves his money and he wants to hide it in a better place. And he thinks that the first place they're going to go is to somewhere that's where they know he would keep it, like a safe room. So he takes his money out of the safe room and he transports it to these hidden caverns that are supposedly nobody knows about. And he has this intricate, elaborate way of getting it there so nobody can follow. But then the Beagle Boys get out, and immediately they try and get his money. And he's watching them break into the room where they think it is, and it takes them all night. And then they're breaking in, and they realize there's no money in there. And Uncle Scrooge is so proud of himself, and he's so happy to watch their faces when they notice nothing's in there. But there, of course, not happy. And now they're like, oh, we need to watch Uncle Scrooge and figure out where his money is, because he can't go a day without seeing his money. So he ends up, Donald's like, you can't, Uncle Scrooge, you can't go to your money. They'll follow you. They'll follow you. So he ends up trying to stay away, but he says he's getting banker's dandruff. And he's like, I need to swim in my money. I just need to swim in my money. I'm getting banker's dandruff. I don't feel right. Like, I need my money massage. So he's kind of freaking out. So Donald locks him in a closet because he's trying to keep him from going to his money. But it just so happens that the closet he locked him in has a saw. So he cuts out of the wall and he goes out to try and get his money. But he gets hit in the head and he forgets where his money is. And so part of it, he's super depressed in this issue. He's like, I'm a pauper. Oh my God. And he the depression that he has, and the fact that he thinks he says banker dandruff is a real thing, and he's like, now I'm gonna have it my whole life. He's just so distraught. And so then he starts trying to find his money. And because he can't remember how things work because he's lost his memory, he actually ends up getting trapped with the Beagle Boys. And none of it comes back to him until he's bopped in the head one more time. And then it all comes back to him. And all I'll say is the ending of this is very cute, because everyone is happy because they get locked in a castle, in a dungeon, and he has to remember how to get out. And Uncle Scrooge is the only one with his memory who knows how to do the code with the bars in order to get out. So once he does, he cares about nothing but swimming in his money. So the ending is very cute. He's like, oh, you guys, I love swimming in my money. And you see him in these pictures, he's just swimming in it, and he's so just in ecstasy being back in his money. So it's a pretty cute story. Okay. And I guess the last thing we're going to end with is I've been kind of busy lately, and I haven't been able to participate in the Friday comic challenges. So I thought I'd show my Friday comic challenge tonight in this video for the funny comic covers. So we'll end with that, and hopefully then it balances out with the spooky to really kind of happy, humorous, and you have great dreams. So the first one I wanted to show for my Friday comic challenge was Dynamite Red Sonja Valentine's Day Special 2021 cover B. And I just thought it was cute. It says, even as our hungry lips met, the heart within me crying, did I pop a breath mint? And it says, he's clinging and filled with self-loathing, and as old as the hills, and yet everything I ever wanted in a man, I can't help but love him so. And then he says, sure, she wants me now, but what happens once I show her the prenup? Then my next one for the funny comic covers is Harvey, Sad Sack, and Sarge, number 131. And I don't know why, but I love this one. So he's driving this truck with all these tools, and he's stealing all the other soldiers' clothing. But he's oblivious to everything he's doing. The next one is Gold Key, Porky Pig, and Bugs Bunny, number 73, 1977. And there's a dog here, and it says Petunia for dog catchers, and she's climbing a pole. Next, I have Gold Key, Tom and Jerry, number 252, 1977. And they're using his feet as shields, and he just became aware of it. They're trying to get shade from the sun, so they think they're very comfortable. This next one is a Whitman, The Beagle Boys, number 31, 1976. And it's see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So they're not telling, and somebody broke his piggy bank. This next one is Harvey Little Dot Dotland, number 63, 1974. And this one, she has so many ice creams. His face is bewildered, and they're all angry because she's taking forever, but she's the only one. She's super happy. This one is Charlatan Comics, Blondie, number 210, and this is 1974. And it says, I had to walk all the way home. They wouldn't let me on the bus. This one is Dell Gold Key, Little Lulu, number 206, at summer camp, and it's 1972. And she can't take a hint that everybody else is scared and running away. And she's like, oh, I'll feed the little skunk. Hey, polka dot ice cream, I'm sure it exists. Mix some dots with ice cream. Dell Walt Disney Comics and Stories number 218. This is a Carl Barks, and it's 1958. And I like that this is what happens when you leave children alone in the bathtub. And I like that he's just sitting there reading the paper like, oh, there's a river with boats. Okay, now this last one, I like Gene Autry. I'll say this first. I like Gene Autry. He's a singing cowboy. He owned the he owned the Angels baseball team, and he came up with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Here Comes Santa Claus. He was in like 90 films, but this cover, this cover makes me laugh because he's looking at the camera and he's holding a gun. You're supposed to be looking where you're pointing a gun, and where he's pointing the gun is at a child. So if that isn't humorous. But Gene Autry also came up with the cowboy code, which he said cowboys don't shoot first, be gentle with children and elderly, and always and animals, and always tell the truth. So he was a decent guy, but this is just not okay. He's a very different cowboy than, say, Wyatt Earp and the Cowboy Wars. If any of you have not watched on Netflix, Wyatt Earp and the Cowboy Wars, it is a very good documentary / movie reenactment. So in that, cowboys are kind of a derogatory term, and there is no cowboy code. The guy, what is his name? Clanton. He is a cowboy, and they're part of a gang, and they're just really bad guys. There is no code. They'll shoot first. He lies in court. So they are very different than this cowboy. So he is actually a very stand-up guy, but again, humorous that he's looking not where he's shooting and pointing it at a child. But yeah, so maybe sometime I'll talk about this one too. This is the Wyatt Earp number 30. But I really do like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. So I like some westerns. If you have time, you should check it out on Netflix. If you have, um, and because tomorrow is May 4th, I have to end with this one: Marvel's Return of the Jedi, Lando #1. May the Force be with you. So that concludes my live show for tonight with Comics Before Bed. And I hope you had some fun looking at some of my campfire stories, ghost stories, and some of my other books and my comic challenge. So press like and subscribe. And next time, I don't know when I'm going to be doing my show, or I think I might change the time next time. Maybe I'll do Comics Before Breakfast or something. But I think we're going to be doing people, comic books about people. So I hope you'll check that one out too in the future. It was a lot of fun. I'm so glad you guys were all here with me. Yeah, now you need some sleep. I need some sleep too. But thank you so much, all of you. I had a lot of fun. And yeah, I would shout out all of the people I saw. I just don't want to leave out anyone. So, comic buddies, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. See you next time.